His name is Tonye. He is 46 years old and he is a fisherman in a community along the Wari River in Delta State. He has been fishing these waters since he was 12. He learned from his father. His father learned from his father's father. The river is their inheritance. In 2021, Tonye stopped going to the deep sections near the oil pipeline. The water had turned colors he did not recognize, greenish with an oily sheen that never fully cleared. His nets came up contaminated. 2 of the 3 community boreholes were undrinkable. He and his neighbors started buying sachet water for cooking. In 2023, Tonye voted for the PDP governorship candidate. He did not vote for the man because he liked him particularly. He voted because his community's ward chairman told him to, and because in 30 years of adult life in Delta State, the PDP was the party that at least spoke the language of the Niger Delta. Its president had been from Bayelsa. Its government had created the amnesty program. The PDP was imperfect, but it was familiar. Then in 2025, his governor, the man he voted for on a PDP ticket, walked into an APC party hall in Abuja and crossed to the ruling party. No community meeting, no ward consultation, no explanation that reached Tonye's village, just a headline on his neighbor's phone. What is happening to Tonye is really about the total political capture of Nigeria's oil-producing region by a ruling party that Tonye's community did not elect their governor to join. And the question underneath that capture, the war that nobody is discussing loudly enough, is whether the communities whose rivers fund the federal government are gaining anything from the alliance their leaders have made in their name. The question that will not leave Tonye is this: who exactly does his governor now represent? Before we go deeper, if you are just finding Niger News Watch, welcome. This channel exists to break down what is really happening in Nigerian politics without the noise and without the spin. If that is the kind of analysis you enjoy, hit subscribe and stay with me because this story is about to get a lot more interesting. Let us catch you up on exactly what happened and why the timing makes it one of the most consequential political developments in Nigerian history. In 2023, the APC controlled exactly one South-South governorship, one Cross River, in a region of 6 states, Rivers, Delta, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, and Edo, that produces over 90% of Nigeria's crude oil. The APC had a single foothold. By June 2026, all 6 South-South states are effectively under APC control. Delta's Sheriff Obrevori crossed, Akwa Ibom's Umo Eno crossed, Bayelsa's Doye Diri crossed, technically southeast but part of the same political wave. River State is managed through Wike's Rainbow Coalition and Fubara's constrained APC alignment. Cross River was already there. None of these transitions happened through elections. Every one happened through governor defections. Voters were not consulted. No by-elections were held. No community meetings were convened. Their representatives made personal political decisions that transferred the region's political alignment without asking the people who live in the region. The immediate trigger for why this story is urgent now is the Fubara-Wike Tinubu triangle in River State, which we covered in detail in a previous video, and the specific Ijaw and community-level response to how the region's political class is managing its relationship with Abuja. Former governors are openly organizing resistance. Ijaw youth groups have expressed displeasure. Pan-Niger Delta Forum leaders are using language about political takeover that signals a threshold has been crossed, and the river is still contaminated. Now, let us look at the institutional architecture, because to understand the war underneath the APC consolidation, you need to understand the specific legal and constitutional arrangements that define the South-South's relationship with the federal government. The 13% derivation formula in Section 162(2) of the 1999 Constitution is the most important legal provision for Tonye's daily life. It entitles oil-producing states to receive 13% of revenue generated from resources extracted within their territory, on top of standard FAAC allocations. For a state like Delta, which ranks among Nigeria's top 3 in oil production, this produces enormous revenue. In the first 5 months of 2025 alone, River State received 114 billion naira in derivation revenue. The constitutional provision is automatic and neutral. The federal government cannot withhold derivation revenue from a state simply because its governor is in the opposition. So the immediate fiscal argument for APC alignment is not primarily about derivation. That flows regardless. What alignment changes is the discretionary federal layer on top of derivation: specific intervention funds, ecological funds, security deployment for oil installations, regulatory decisions affecting local oil contractors, NNPC engagement on state-specific production issues, and federal infrastructure allocation. These discretionary decisions are not constitutionally automatic. They flow through executive discretion, and that discretion is more generously exercised for aligned states. The second institutional dimension is the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission. It has received hundreds of billions of naira since 2000 and remains one of Nigeria's most consistently scandal-ridden federal agencies. A 2025 ICPC audit found 150 suspicious allocations under recent management. The NDDC was supposed to develop the South. It has been managed primarily as a patronage vehicle, and the governors who are now aligned with Abuja have the same relationship to NDDC resources that every previous South governor has had: access to the Commission's project awards and contractors lists. For Tonye and his contaminated river in Delta State, the constitutional and institutional architecture translates into one concrete reality. The legal framework that entitles his community to derivation revenue exists. The institutional vehicle for deploying that revenue towards development, the NDDC, has historically not delivered, and his governor crossing to the APC changes the political relationship with the federal government, but changes nothing about the institutional track record of what that relationship has actually produced for fishing communities along the Wari River. Now, let us go deep. This is where the war underneath the APC consolidation becomes visible, and where the questions that nobody is asking out loud get answered. Let us start with what the APC takeover of the South actually means, not as stated in press releases, but as measurable political fact. The APC now exerts control across almost all geopolitical zones. In the South, it governs Delta, Akwa Ibom, Edo, Cross River, Rivers, and Bayelsa following defections by PDP governors. And with that control comes a specific structural advantage heading into 2027. Every state party machine, every local government chairman, every community patronage network in the South 6 states is now working for the APC's presidential re-election campaign. In a region that produces 93% of Nigeria's crude oil and whose votes are required for the constitutional 25% spread, that structural alignment is worth more to Tinubu's 2027 campaign than almost any other single political development. But here's the pattern interrupt that reframes the entire story. The APC's control of South governors is not the same as the APC's control of South voters. Disenchanted political frontrunners in the South geopolitical zone are mobilizing the people against the takeover of the oil-rich region by President Tinubu and the APC ahead of the 2027 elections. Former governors Odigio Oyegun of Edo, Rotimi Amaichi of Rivers, and Liaye Imoke of Cross River are superintending this resistance operation in the oil-rich region. Former governors, people who understand South political terrain deeply, who have personal networks in these communities, who know how the political machinery works, are building an organized resistance to the APC consolidation. They are not working in the open, they are working through the same community networks that the sitting governors now claim to control. And then there is the Ijaw question, the one that carries the most historical weight. Following Fubara's withdrawal from the 2027 governorship race, Ijaw leaders and youth groups in River State expressed their dissatisfaction. Anab Saraige, pioneer spokesman of Pan-Niger Delta Forum, said, "I have never seen anything like this. One man thinks he can do and undo as he pleases, and no one dares challenge him." The Ijaw community is not a passive political object. It is the most historically assertive community in the Niger Delta. the generation that produced MEND, the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, and the generation that produced the political pressure that eventually led to the 13% derivation formula and the amnesty program under Jonathan, that generation is watching the APC consolidation with a specific and historically informed anger. When Pan-Niger Delta Forum leaders say in public that they have never seen anything like this, it means the threshold of tolerance has been crossed, and communities in the Niger Delta have a documented history of expressing crossed thresholds in ways that go beyond electoral politics. Now, let us talk about what the war underneath the takeover actually consists of. Front 1, the Fubara-Wike Cold War in Rivers. We covered this in detail in our Rivers State video. Fubara agreed to surrender his second-term ambitions, recognized Wike as the dominant political authority, and defected to the APC.
The deal was supposed to settle Rivers, but sources say the peace accord between Fubara and Wike is fracturing as the 2027 elections draw close. Fubara has been endorsing assembly candidates loyal to him. Wike has accused Fubara of breaching the deal. The sitting governor of Rivers State and the most powerful APC-aligned political figure in the South are in active political war in a state the APC desperately needs to deliver cleanly for the 2027 presidential race. Front 2, the life expectancy testimony. A 2023 report commissioned by Bayelsa State described the environmental situation in oil communities as an environmental genocide, noting that studies connected oil spills to 16,000 neonatal deaths annually in Nigeria and documented a life expectancy of 41 years in the Delta compared to the national average of 61 years. 41 years. The communities whose rivers fund the federal government, whose oil generates the FAC allocations that all 36 states receive, live lives that are 20 years shorter than the national average. And the governors who are supposed to represent their interests in Abuja have just formally joined the party of the federal government that manages those resources. The alignment did not fix this. The alignment was made while this continues. Front 3, the oil company divestment and what it leaves behind. International oil companies, Shell, Total Energies, Chevron, have been divesting from Nigerian onshore assets. They are not leaving because the oil ran out. They are leaving because ESG pressure from international shareholders makes Nigerian onshore delta operations increasingly untenable on their books. They are leaving behind aging pipelines, abandoned wellheads, and contaminated land that will continue to spill and flare for decades. The Nigerian government, which owns the NNPC and cooperates all these assets, inherits the decommissioning responsibility, and it has no credible plan for it. The APC governors who just joined Tinubu's party have made no specific public demands about what they want in exchange for political alignment on this specific catastrophic environmental legacy. The silent players in this story are two. The first is the international oil company divestment process, the timeline on which Shell and Total Energies complete their Nigerian onshore exits, and what that process looks like in terms of who acquires the assets, what remediation commitments are made, and whether community interests are represented in the negotiation. Those decisions are being made in London and Paris and Houston, not in Abuja, not in Port Harcourt, and certainly not in Tonye's fishing village. The second silent player is the community association network, the fishing cooperatives, the women's market associations, the youth development organizations in Delta, Rivers, and Bayelsa communities that operate entirely below the political class level and that represent the actual daily interests of people like Tonye. These organizations are watching. They remember the amnesty program, the promises, the NDDC projects that were awarded but never completed. They are the constituency whose loyalty the APC consolidation claims to have secured and whose actual opinion of that consolidation has never been seriously surveyed. Now, if what I just laid out surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your take before we get to the part that changes the whole picture. Let us come back to Tonye and his contaminated river in Delta State. His governor crossed to the APC. The official narrative is that this alignment will produce better development outcomes for Delta State, more favorable federal attention, more infrastructure, more security for oil installations. The fact data is real. States are receiving record allocations in 2025, and federal goodwill toward an aligned governor is documented as a real governance advantage. But Tonye's river is still contaminated. His boreholes are still undrinkable. The NDDC project that was supposed to install a water treatment facility in his ward was awarded in 2019 and was never completed. The governor who crossed to the APC is the same governor who was elected on a PDP ticket to represent Tonye's interests, and the crossing happened without Tonye being consulted. For businesses in the South, the oil contractors, the transport operators, the traders in Warri and Port Harcourt and Yenagua, the APC consolidation produces short-term clarity in the political environment. APC-connected contractors benefit immediately from the alignment shift, but the medium-term risk is the community-level anger we are documenting in this video. The Nigerian Delta has a history of expressing political grievance through pipeline disruption. Communities that feel they have been politically managed rather than politically represented have historically been willing to disrupt the economic activity that depends on the social stability of of their territory, for the security of Nigeria's oil infrastructure, and therefore for the federal revenue that funds FARC and governs the country. The political temperature of the South-South communities is not an abstract governance concern, it is a direct economic risk. The international dimension of the South-South political war underneath the APC consolidation is specific and consequential. The UN Environment Programme's 2011 report found that groundwater in Ogoni Rivers State was contaminated with benzene at levels over 900 times above WHO safe limits. That report was published 15 years ago. The cleanup that was promised has not been completed. UNEP itself has documented the ongoing gap between commitment and delivery. The South-South environmental crisis is not a domestic Nigerian governance failure that the international community is unaware of. It is a documented, internationally published humanitarian and environmental catastrophe for which multiple international instruments provide remediation obligations that Nigeria has not met. The international oil company divestment from Nigerian onshore assets, Shell, TotalEnergies, Chevron, have been divesting from Nigerian onshore assets. They are not leaving because the oil ran out. They are leaving because ESG pressure from international shareholders makes Nigerian onshore delta operations increasingly untenable on their books. They are leaving behind aging pipelines, abandoned wellheads, and contaminated land that will continue to spill and flare for decades. The Nigerian government, which owns the NNPC and co-operates all these assets, inherits the decommissioning responsibility, and it has no credible plan for it. The APC governors who just joined Tinubu's party have made no specific public demands about what they want in exchange for political alignment on this specific catastrophic environmental legacy. Let me address what people are getting wrong about this story. The first misconception from APC supporters is that the South-South APC consolidation represents genuine community endorsement of Tinubu's governance and will automatically translate into clean presidential results. Traditional rulers, clan heads, and village chiefs in Akwa Ibom collectively endorsed Tinubu at a publicized rally, emphasizing belief in good governance and developmental continuity. But traditional ruler endorsement and community fishing cooperative sentiment are different things. Tonye's community did not send representatives to that rally. Their interests are not the same as the interests of the political and traditional elites who attended it. The second misconception from resistance voices is that the former governor's opposition operation is purely principled and purely about community interests. It is not. Odige Oyegun, Amaichi, and Imoke are former governors with their own political ambitions, their own unresolved grievances with the Tinubu administration, and their own calculations for 2031. The resistance operation is both genuinely rooted in South-South community concerns about political autonomy and simultaneously shaped by the personal political interests of the figures leading it. Both things are true simultaneously. The third and most important misconception from everyone not paying close enough attention is that the APC's political capture of South-South governors is stable and durable because it was achieved through elite-level deal-making. Elite-level deals in the South-South are durable when they deliver visible community development. They are not durable when the communities they nominally represent can see their rivers contaminated, their life expectancy at 41 years, their NDDC projects incomplete, and their political voice managed rather than heard. The Nigerian Delta has broken political arrangements that seemed solid before. The 2027 election will test whether this one holds. Here's what to watch between now and 2027. The three signals that will tell you whether the war underneath the consolidation breaks the surface before election day. First signal, whether the Fubara-Wike River State Cold War produces a formal split before 2027 governorship primaries. We documented that Fubara has been endorsing assembly candidates loyal to him, while Wike accused Fubara of breaching the deal. If Fubara formally enters the governorship race on an opposition platform, ADC or NDC, it triggers an overt civil war inside APC's most important South-South claim. Watch whether Fubara's endorsements of assembly candidates intensify or stabilize, and whether any opposition party formally approaches him with a gubernatorial ticket offer before the primary season closes. Second signal, whether any Ijaw civil society organization, the Ijaw National Congress, the Pan-Nigerian Delta Forum, or a major youth group issues a formal political statement opposing the APC presidential candidacy in the South-South. These organizations do not endorse candidates in the formal sense, but their public communications shape community political permission. A formal INC or PANDEF statement calling on South-South communities to vote against the APC presidential ticket, explicitly framing the APC consolidation as a political takeover, would be the most significant community-level political signal to come out of the South-South before 2027. Third signal, whether the NDDC makes any visible, credible development delivery announcement in Delta, Rivers, or Bayelsa before 2027. The APC consolidation of the South-South carries an implicit promise. Alignment produces development. If the NDDC produces no visible, community-acknowledged project delivery between now and election season, if the contaminated rivers, the incomplete water projects, the 41-year life expectancy testimonies continue without any tangible federal response, the APC's claim that alignment benefits communities will be empirically falsified for the very communities it needs to deliver for. Best case scenario for APC. The Fubara-Wike Cold War is managed before it goes public. Ijaw civil society organizations maintain political neutrality, criticizing the environmental situation without explicitly calling for an anti-APC presidential vote. The NDDC makes at least one visible community-acknowledged project delivery before election season. The governor's machines deliver sufficient presidential results in the South to meet the constitutional spread requirement. Tonye's ward actually gets the water treatment facility. Worst case scenario for APC. The Fubara-Wike split produces an overt public confrontation. Pande for INC issues a statement explicitly opposing APC presidential alignment. The NDDC produces no tangible delivery. Community anger in Ijaw and Nigerian Delta territories produces a specific protest vote, not organized as a formal opposition campaign, but distributed across enough communities that the APC's South-South presidential margins fall significantly below what its governor-level dominance would predict. Tonye votes, but not for the party his governor now belongs to. The long-term impact if the South-South APC political capture produces no visible improvement in community living conditions is the most fundamental possible challenge to the argument that alignment with the center produces development. The derivation formula already ensures automatic resource flows. If alignment on top of that produces nothing more than what automatic derivation would have produced anyway, if the discretionary federal layer turns out to be less significant than advertised, and if the political trade-off of surrendering community voice produces no tangible return, the case for the kind of political submission that Tonye's governor made will be permanently weakened, and the South-South's history of making its political displeasure visible in the most economically consequential ways possible will have a new generation of community members ready to activate it. Let us come back to Tonye on his boat in Warri River. At the beginning of this video, he asked a question that has not left him since his governor crossed to the APC. Who exactly does his governor now represent? Here's the honest answer.
His governor represents his community's interests through a political arrangement that trades community voice for federal alignment benefits. Whether that trade is worth it depends entirely on whether those alignment benefits materialize as visible, tangible improvements in the communities whose rivers were already contaminated and whose life expectancy was already 41 years before the crossing happened. That is the question Tonye's community will answer at the 2027 ballot box. Not through an organized opposition campaign, not through a formal political endorsement, but through the individual decisions of fishermen and market women and teachers and young people who have watched the political class make arrangements in their name and are calculating, quietly, privately, in the way that Nigerian communities always calculate these things, whether the arrangement produced anything worth endorsing with their vote. My measured conclusion: the APC's capture of South-South governors is real, is structural, and gives Tinubu a significant electoral advantage heading into 2027. But the war underneath that capture, the Fubara-Wike fracture, the Ijaw community anger, the 41-year life expectancy and the contaminated rivers, and the incomplete NDDC project, that war is real too. And the 2027 election will not be decided by which side makes more press conference statements. It will be decided by what Tonye and his neighbors see when they look at their river on election day morning and ask themselves whether voting APC is the same as voting for the people who say they represent them. The question I want to leave you with is this: do you think the APC's political capture of South-South governors will actually translate into genuine community-level electoral delivery in 2027? Or is there a community-level resistance underneath the elite-level alignment that could produce results the governor machines were not expecting? Drop your honest answer in the comments. If this breakdown gave you clarity on what is really going on, do me a favor, share it with one person who needs to understand this. Like the video, subscribe to Niger News Watch, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sharp.